Jacksonville Jaguars fans, welcome in to Duval Daily presented by GenJag.com. I'm Jordan DeLugo. Thanks so much for being here Wednesday, April 16th. So it's draft season. It's also Orlando Magic season, right? Go Magic. Won that play-in game decisively, you could say, over their division rivals, the Atlanta Hawks. They will be facing the Boston Celtics in round one of the Eastern Conference playoffs. Fired up for it, but this is a Jacksonville Jaguars show. It is draft season. It's Wednesday, April 16th, which means 8 days away from the first round of the 2025 NFL Draft. And with that, we've got a lot of interesting content to kind of take a look at. I provide a lot of original content myself when it comes to the draft, but anytime ESPN puts out a mock draft, I think it's worth taking a look at. And ESPN has dropped a 3-round mock draft with Field Yates and Mel Kiper snaking on picks. So Kiper, Yates, etc. So the Jaguars in the first 3 rounds, they have 4 picks. That's pretty exciting. This draft needs to be in a lot of ways, a foundational draft for the Jaguars. They have pieces. We've talked about that. They have a lot of pieces. They have their franchise quarterback. They have a franchise receiver. They have 2 very good edge players. They have 2 very good tackles. I think that there's some folks that would argue the tackle position isn't as solid as I think it is, but I think that Walker Little and Anton Harrison will prove themselves in a big way. They have upgraded the interior of the offensive line. At least they believe they have. They have a couple talented running backs, talented linebackers. There's talent on this roster. Now there are holes, and there are guys that spots that they need them to be able to come in and play pretty immediately to have their best opportunity to potentially compete for this division again in 2025, which that's where they should be. They're not in a tough division like the NFC North or the AFC West. They should be able to compete in this division and be in the conversation at the end. But in order to get to that point, I do think that this draft, they've got to hit it. And James Gladstone, I'm a huge fan of the way he thinks about football, the way he thinks about roster building, talent acquisition. I think Liam Cohen's a really smart guy too. So I think they have good leadership when it comes to building this thing out. They made a conscious effort to raise the floor in free agency. I think they did that. That was their goal. In the draft, the goal has to be to raise the floor and raise the ceiling. So that's what I think they need to be looking to do. Getting into this mock draft from Field Yates and Mel Kiper Jr. of ESPN. Yates has the first pick for the Jaguars at 5 overall. And we've talked about this. I think the Jaguars should be in on trading down. I don't know that there are trades here in this draft, but the Jaguars don't trade out. And they take after Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter. After Cam Ward, Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, and Will Campbell go 1, 2, 3, 4. The Jaguars take Mason Graham, who is my 4th overall prospect. Field Yates has this to say about the Jaguars pick. The Jaguars have holes at every level of their defense. After allowing 5.9 yards per play last season, 31st in the NFL, and Graham is the best available player. He impacts the game in a meaningful way as both a pass rusher and run defender with elite play strength and explosion off the snap. I don't know if I would say Mason Graham has like elite play strength, but he is incredibly explosive off the snap, refined hands, and just such a fun player. Again, my number 4 prospect in this class. I think he's going to be a game wrecker on the interior of the defensive line. A very young prospect, still a guy who I think started really popping on tape at like 19 years old. So yeah, I'm very much in on Mason Graham. If the Jaguars don't trade out of the 5th pick, I think Mason Graham makes the most sense for this football team. As far as the Jaguars having holes at every level of their defense, it's interesting. I think linebacker Devin Lloyd is probably the most people got a lot of opinions. And so there's a lot of different opinions on Devin Lloyd. I was listening to Ollie Connolly yesterday on NFL Daily, and he said that he thinks Devin Lloyd played at an all-pro level last year. A lot of Jags fans think he's the worst linebacker on the face of the earth. I fall somewhere in the middle, and I believe he has the talent to prove that he can play at a very good starter level. I just think that there's a little bit of variance, too much variance, and when you see the bad plays hit, the inconsistency hit, it looks like, maybe he shouldn't be on the field. So that's kind of how I view Devin Lloyd and the linebacker position. But Mason Graham makes a ton of sense to me at 5 overall. Devon Hamilton, Eric Armstead, probably not going to be around long term. You do have Mason Smith, who I think is capable of being a very disruptive interior player himself. You have the law firm of Mason and Mason now after the 5th pick to kind of man that interior and to create disruption to help out Josh Hines-Allen and Trayvon Walker in a big way, and also to help out those linebackers we were just talking about. And I do think Foye Oluokun probably still a very underrated player in this league for whatever reason. Now at 36, this is where things get spicy, and I love it. Mel Kiper Jr. with the 36th pick has the Jacksonville Jaguars taking Luther Burden III, wide receiver, Missouri. Burden has juice after the catch, and he'd help Trevor Lawrence in that department. This is good value too. Burden could ultimately go in round 1. And in my opinion, Burden should go in round 1. In my opinion, Luther Burden, outside of Travis Hunter, I always forget to make that caveat, outside of Travis Hunter, Luther Burden is wide receiver 1. But again, we don't know what Travis Hunter is going to be playing at the next level. We don't know if it's corner receiver. Either way, Travis Hunter is my top prospect, right? If he falls to 5, the Jaguars should not trade out. They should take him. But getting back to this mock draft, Luther Burden falling to 36 is absolutely ridiculous. If the NFL lets Luther Burden fall out of the first round, I'll lose my mind. And if someone doesn't trade up to get him before 36, what are we doing? Productive throughout his career. Early on, as a freshman, productive as all get out. Productive throughout the career. Very low drop rate, very high contested catch rate, explosive, yak monster, great hands. The one thing you can say about Luther Burden's game is he wasn't asked to run like a full NFL route tree. But is there anything on tape that suggests he can't? I don't think so. Strong football player, explosive football player, strong hands, unbelievable yak guy, 3-level threat, adjusts really well to the ball down the field, can make some spectacular catches. This would be potentially the steal of the draft, although the Raiders get Josh Simmons at 37. That might be the steal of the draft too. Some crazy stuff here. And how does that potentially happen? I really don't know. Quarterback's going too early, probably. Quarterback's going too early. But Luther Burden to the Jaguars at 36 would be just chef's kiss. And then at 70, another pick that I am a huge fan of for your Jacksonville Jaguars, another pick that I regularly make when I'm doing mock drafts for the Jaguars. Andrew Makuba, safety out of Texas. This is Mel Kiper's pick again. He says, I'm a big fan of Makuba's game. He could join Eric Murray in filling Andre Sisco's void on the back end for the Jaguars. Makuba picked off 5 passes last season. Jacksonville was 30th in the NFL with only 6 interceptions. Yeah, Makuba, very steady, very willing to come downhill and play the run, but a instinctive, smart safety that I think can come in and start, or at least, play significantly right away for the Jaguars and make a difference on that back end in the secondary. So that's a big thumbs up for me. So far in this draft, I think they've hit it out of the park with the first 3 picks: Mason Graham, Luther Burden, Andrew Makuba. Final pick here, again, Mel Kiper. Quincy Riley, cornerback out of Louisville. He says the Jaguars signed Jordan Lewis in the slot, but there are still questions opposite Tyson Campbell on the outside over 6 college seasons. Riley has 15 interceptions and 39 pass breakups. Yeah, to me, I looked at all the cornerbacks that had been taken. This is probably about like the pecking order of where Quincy Riley should go in relation to the rest of the cornerback class. But he's not an elite athlete. by any stretch. He doesn't have great size. I think it's a little early. I think he should probably be a day 3 pick, probably like a 4th round pick. That doesn't mean he won't work out. I think that as somebody who I value as a 4th round pick, that means I think he has a chance to be a starter. But when I'm talking about 3rd round prospects, I think that they need to either project as an obvious starter or have a clearly defined usefulness in their skill set. And to me, Quincy Riley probably comes in, and I don't think he beats out Jarian Jones. Quite honestly, I don't think he would beat out Jarian Jones. And that's one thing that Mel Kiper fails to talk about here is Jarian Jones. Yes, the Jaguars signed Jordan Lewis. Yes, they have Tyson Campbell. Jarian Jones is part of this picture too. And to me, is Quincy Riley massively upgrading for you over Buster Brown, over DeAndre Prince, these types of guys? I don't know. Maybe. He does have ball skills. I think that he probably needs to be, and he can play with some physicality. I think he probably needs to be more of a zone corner, off the ball and zone coverage, or physical up at the line of scrimmage. I don't think you're talking about somebody who can truly like run with guys and play that straight up man coverage. Not that the Jaguars are going to do that all the time. I'm just talking about the skill set here. I just don't really understand why he should go this high. I think it's a little early, just a little early. And I think there's probably prospects available at other positions that just make more sense overall for the Jaguars. I mean, you see all sorts of guys that I'm a big fan of going off the board later on. So while I wouldn't slam this pick if Quincy Riley does end up being a Jaguar at 88, it's just not the direction I would go. I think it's just a tad bit rich compared to some of the other spots. And then when you look at the roster construction, is Quincy Riley going to be a better player than Jarian Jones? Do you want to draft a CB4 or CB5 at 88 overall with no clear path to becoming that starting type of corner that you're talking about? Not until probably, I don't know. What is the path? Because I don't think he's a better football player than Jarian Jones. I just don't. So that's kind of my take on this 3-round mock draft for the Jacksonville Jaguars. 3 unbelievable picks. Luther Burden at 36 just still seems ludicrous to me. I think he's a borderline top 10 prospect. The only question I think you could poke, or the only hole I think you could poke in his game, is the fact that he hasn't been asked to run the full route tree. Guess what? Neither was Brian Thomas Jr. last year. I'm not saying that Luther Burden is Brian Thomas Jr. They have 2 different skill sets. But you want to put them on the same field together in the same offense? I am all for it. So Mason Graham at 5, which again, I think trading down is the best option. Don't know if that option will be on the table. So Mason Graham, second best option in this scenario. And then Luther Burden, then Andrew Makuba, then Quincy Riley. I will say if you go secondary and 2 out of your first 4 picks and defense and 3 out of your first 4 picks, that's a little questionable in terms of supporting Trevor Lawrence, but getting Luther Burden, that's going to help out a lot. It absolutely is. So let me know what y'all think in the comment section below. If you enjoy the content, please like and subscribe. Y'all have a good one.